8 on the calendar in the matter of Brown versus Brown.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Judge Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat.
Mr. Brown, this is your daughter, and I'm sure you have some reason that you perceive as a good one for suing her. I'm not talking about the legitimacy of your claim. I'm talking about the fact that you are suing her at all. But this is what I perceive to be the situation. Tell me if I'm mistaken. Pursuant to your divorce decree, you are supposed to pay for your daughter's education if she is a full-time student.
Correct.
Is there a finite age when that stops?
As long as she is continuing to attend school, she is eligible to receive child support up until the age of 21.
21.
Yes.
And according to you, you were under the impression that your daughter was a student continuously after
Correct.
she graduated from high school. How old are you now?
I'm 20 years old.
In fact, your daughter was not attending school on a full-time basis after she graduated from high school, but took off, according to her, a couple of semesters because she had a child and she had to regroup. And you didn't know that she wasn't attending school. You continued to pay the child support, and you want her to return to you the money that you paid while she was not in school.
That's correct, Your Honor.
And you concede you were not in school.
I was not in school for 2 terms.
2 terms is how many months?
It was a total of 5 months.
And what was your child support each month?
$343.20 a month.
Did you tell your father you were not in school?
No, in fact, we haven't even spoken for about 5 years.
So you didn't tell him that you were not in school?
No.
So you tell me, Ms. Brown, why you think you don't owe him this money?
My father hasn't been in my life for about 5 years.
This is not Dr. Phil. This is a court.
The only reason why I did not tell him is because the first term I took off was because I was due to have my child at the end of that term. I would miss finals, which means I would have to retake the classes. And in order for me not to have to pay for those classes twice, I decided to take the term off. And the second term I took off was because I was recouping from my cesarean section.
I understand your reasons.
Yes.
But, you know, we're dealing with a contract, so you have to pay him back for those 5 months. My question to you, Mr. Brown, is why would you sue her over this money?
When she originally graduated from high school in May of '09, she was eligible to be off, per the state requirements, up to 4 months for a summer break. The school that she eventually did start, the next term actually started in July. She did not start that term. I did not find out that she was not attending school until October of that year.
Just a second.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, your daughter says she took off 2 terms. She said it was 5 months. That's not my question. My question is, under the terms of your divorce decree, she owes you the money. I assume that you've been paying child support for a long time, right?
Correct. 10 years.
As well you should. She's your child.
Yes.
I don't understand why you're suing her.
We do not have any contact.
Did you think that this would help?
No, I didn't think this would help, but I thought that this might enable her to realize the responsibility of her actions.
Why suing her, do you believe, would suggest to a 20-year-old who has already made the mistake of having a baby when she's not financially or emotionally prepared to be a parent? I assume you live with your mother?
I do.
Now you're back in school, so I assume your mother takes care of your baby.
She does when I'm at school, yes.
Of course. So because of your irresponsibility, your mother is now taking on the responsibility again of being a parent. So your suing her is not going to make her more responsible.
No, it's not, Your Honor.
So then you just have to explain to me, Mr. Brown, something that I can understand as to why over, at most, $1,700 or $1,800, you're suing a child. How many children do you have?
I have 2 children.
How old are they?
One is 23 and one is 20.
And the 23-year-old is your brother?
Yes, my half-brother. We don't speak.
You don't speak.
I do not speak to any of his family.
The 23-year-old boy you see?
Occasionally.
What's occasionally, Mr. Brown?
He was in Germany in the military, and he's recently got back, but he has had problems with his marriage and his life.
Well, prior to his going to Germany, did you live with him?
Yes, I raised him.
And then he went to Germany, and then he came home, and now you have little contact.
That is correct.
So, Mr. Brown, you have 2 children with whom you have no contact. Did you ever say, maybe I better look inside myself?
Yes, Your Honor.
I mean, again, I'm not a therapist, but I have children. I actually speak to most of them on at least a weekly basis. Some of them I speak to twice a day, and they're twice her age. If I wasn't in contact with all my children, I don't think that I could justify it and say there's something wrong with my children as a parent. So we come back to the fact that you think your daughter may owe you money, but it sounds to me as if she's trying, despite some missteps, to put herself back on track. Why would you interfere with that?
Your Honor, when I found out that she wasn't going to school, I decided that I would go ahead and file the objection to stop the child support, which happened. I told my wife and myself that if she went back to school and left well enough alone and did not reinstate the child support, that I would call it a wash, that it would be even. But under the direction of whoever's influencing her life, she decided to go ahead and stick it to me again for more child support.
Mr. Brown, what kind of stick it to you again? She's 20 years old. She went back to school. That's why your children don't talk to you, sir. You have a new wife?
Yes.
That's why your children don't talk to you, because you refer to it as sticking it to you again. You're supposed to pay child support if you have children, sir.
I understand that, and I've been paying regularly and on time, no deadbeat dad, for 10 years.
Big deal! So what? You think that you deserve a medal for that, Mr. Brown?
No.
You don't deserve a medal for that. And if I had a child who made a misstep and became pregnant, took time off to have a baby, had a cesarean, says, all right, maybe I can turn my life around. I'm still only 20 years old and I'm going to go back to school and finish. As a parent, I would say, what can I do to help you?
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She's the child. You're the parent. You're supposed to make it work, not the child. It gets very lonely as you get older, sir.
And later today,
Something's wrong with him. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether he takes prescription medication, non-prescription medication. I'm just telling you that there's something wrong with him.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. William Brown says his daughter, Tabitha Brown, owes for the return of child support she fraudulently collected.
Okay.
Your Honor,
You have to pay him because the law says you have to pay him.
this man demanded a DNA test after 20 years.
Listen to me. There's a reason why his children don't talk to him. But this is a court. A court gave your father the parameters of his child support obligation. Is he now paying you again?
Yes, he is, but he's in
Correct.
arrears.
Well, then the arrears will eventually be paid.
Your
You think
Honor.
that this is going to make it better?
Well, I was just going to tell you that they have credited him some of the money that he is allegedly.
Oh, well, that's important. How much have they credited him, Miss Brown?
They credited him in June and May a total of $234.89.
And then the other,
Stand up.
in July, they credited him $234.89 out of that month for July. But they also credited him another $171 in June.
Did you receive those credits, sir?
No, ma'am. They reapplied them when she reinstated the child support.
What do you mean they reapplied them?
They kept the money when she reinstated child support. They applied that to the current new child support. I have the 10-year summary right here with this year's right.
I'd like to see it, please.
I have a page showing that in July, when they reinstated his child support, that his balance was actually $234 in a credit.
I got
so
it.
he didn't have to
I
pay
got it.
that money.
Miss Brown, I think that your father makes a terrible mistake to bring this lawsuit. I think that in the long term, he has 2 children and he has no communication with them for whatever reason. It's his fault. If you don't speak to a child, it's your fault, not the child's fault. And he has another child that evidently after he raised doesn't speak to him, which doesn't speak well of his parenting. But my hands are tied from a legal perspective, because from a legal perspective, if you were not in school on a full-time basis, you were not entitled to collect money from him. I don't think that you owe him what he would like, which is $2,700. I think that you owe him $1,400, and I'm giving you credit for what you say was deducted by child support. Mr. Brown, it gets very lonely as you get older, sir. How many wives have you had?
2 wives.
He's on his
Current-
3rd marriage.
You've had 2 ex-wives.
No. I remarried my first wife
When?
5 years ago, which is what stopped communication with my daughter. Not my choice.
Just a second. She's the child. You're the parent. You're supposed to make it work, not the child, Mr. Brown. And your daughter's got to give you $1,400. I think it's a big mistake if you take it. What I would say to her is, take that money. You have a boy or a girl?
I have a girl.
Take that money, put it in a bank account for my granddaughter. Let it grow until it's time for her to go away to college, and then tell her it's from her grandfather. She's responsible to give you the money. You're going to be a very lonely old man, Mr. Brown. That's all.
Party's excused. You may step out.
He's a deadbeat. He has nothing to do with me because of his wife.
It wasn't my choice to cut off communication with my daughter. It was her mother's.
I decided that if he was going to be with that woman, that he should not have contact with me because she treats me badly.
My daughter has been brainwashed by her mother since we got our divorce 10 years ago.
I haven't seen this man in 5 years.
I don't think I'll be a lonely old man.
I've tried to reconnect with him many times, and he has nothing to do with me.
There's nothing I can do about it.
I hope he just leaves me alone.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Wright versus Thomas. Step forward.
Delight Wright is suing her ex-boyfriend, Gregory Thomas, for a $1,000 loan and for the cost to store his Jaguar.
Mr. Thomas, what year Jaguar is parked in Miss Wright's garage?
Well, Your Honor, I had it towed there.
I asked you for a year. What year Jaguar is parked in her garage?
2001.
In whose name is the car? Look at me. In whose name is the car?
Donna's.
And who is that?
A friend of mine.
And what are you doing with Miss car?
I was buying it from them, Your Honor.
What do you mean you were buying it from him?
I'm buying it from them, and it tore up on me.
What does that mean? You were buying it from them and it tore up on you. I don't understand that. English, please.
It tore up on me, Your Honor.
Shh. English. You buy a car. You don't buy a car. I don't understand what you mean. You were buying a car.
I bought it, and it tore up on me.
All right, maybe I'm not. What does tore up mean? He doesn't know what it means.
Okay,
I thought it was a car term. I have no idea what tore up means.
Okay, it's not operating. The engine is not operating.
You mean it broke down?
Yes. It broke down.
Well, if you bought it from him, why don't you have it titled in your name? Did you pay him for it?
I haven't finished paying it for it, Your Honor.
Does Mr. know where the car is? Is not an answer, Thomas.
No.
Is he looking for you?
No, sir. No, ma'am.
Why not?
I've been talking with them about that I was going to get it fixed and get it taken care of.
How long has it been in Miss Wright's garage?
A year and a half.
Something's wrong with him. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether he takes prescription medication, non-prescription medication. I'm not sure. I'm just telling you that there's something wrong with him.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
What was your relationship with Mr. Thomas at the time?
He actually was my lover.
So it was sort of easy for you to believe him.
Well, he's very convincing. He's very...
Not me.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Delight Wright says ex-boyfriend Gregory Thomas owes for a loan and storage fees.
Now, let's take care of the car first.
Yes, ma'am.
When you get back home, call a towing company. Have them tow the car to a junkyard. Say this car is trespassing in my house. Okay. He's going to pay as part of a judgment against him for you to have it towed. If they won't tow it for you to a junkyard, have somebody put it out on the street. Police will come and take it if it's in the middle of the street. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Unload it. Get him out of your life.
Okay.
Don't give him a chance to come and get it because he's a little bit off. Okay. Got that so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that takes care of the car business. And it will probably cost you $100 to have somebody come, hitch it up, tow it out of your garage, and put it on the street for them to take away. So that's what she's going to do. She's going to tow that, and she's going to do that tomorrow. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Perfect. Next, did Miss Wright give you $1,000?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
Oh, about the middle of March.
Of 2000 and?
2000 and now it would be 8.
When, Miss Wright, did you give him $1,000?
I gave it to him March 26, 2009.
In 9. Yep.
It was a loan.
See, sometimes when you take medication, Mr. Thomas, your mind just races.
Okay, just...
And what did you give him the money for?
Mr. Thomas had asked me numerous times to loan him $1,000 because he had this great opportunity to have a government bid. He had $14,000. He only needed an additional $1,000 more to equal $15,000.
Sounds like one of those internet scams.
No, this was for a government bid.
No, I understand, but it sounds like an internet scam. Did you ever see a bank book where he had $14,000?
No.
Did you ever see a savings account? Did you ever see evidence that he had $14,000?
No. Well, supposedly it was this great opportunity for him, chance of a lifetime. He's a civil engineer.
And he had most of the money. All he needed was $1,000.
Yes.
And what was your relationship with Mr. Thomas at the time?
He actually was my lover.
So it was sort of easy for you to believe him?
Well, he's very convincing. He's very...
Not to me.
Well, he was very convincing, very romantic and very convincing.
Yeah, well...
He's very, very intellectually inclined.
The idea is if it looks too good and it feels too good, it usually smells bad someplace. You just have to get close enough to it.
Well, I think I had pretty bad judgment because I had been divorced for years. I was not dating for years.
Just a second. He was an exercise in bad judgment.
Yes, he was.
That's it.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Are you the victim of a scam? Go to judgejudy.com or call 1-888-800-JUDY.
Okay, so right now you're suing him for $1,800. You're suing him for storage fees for this ridiculous Jaguar that he's probably hiding from the rightful owner. No. You're going to have that towed, and then he'll have to go deal with it. You want your $1,000 back. He's a scam artist. You're going to get your $1,000 back plus $100 to get the car towed out of your garage.
Okay.
Did you have dinner with him last night?
No, I haven't seen him.
Perfect. Don't go near him.
Okay.
I mean, lunch, a drink, or anything. Stay away from him.
I felt as though he took advantage of me because he
Well, he took advantage of you.
Because I'm older than him.
Yeah, whatever. Listen, you're going home today?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay, so you'll have to wait until tomorrow or the next day to get the car towed. And then he'll have to go chasing around to try to find it. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,100. That's all. Thank you very much. That's all.
Please excuse. You may step out. Judge 367 on the count in the matter of Allen versus Goodell.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Mr. Allen, how long have you and the defendant been together?
Off and on for about 14 years.
You have a child, is that right, together?
That's correct.
How old?
He's 6.
You're no longer together with the defendant, is that right?
That is absolutely right.
Who has custody of the boy?
She does.
Really? How did that happen?
We just both agreed through family probate court that she'd have custody.
That's a sort of strange. What's wrong with you?
Nothing. That's just the way we decided to do it.
Well, I'm curious about that, considering what this case is about.
She has her problems, but she drinks a lot is what it is. And I don't think that... She's a good mother is what it comes down to.
You can't be a good mother and drink a lot, Mr. Allen. Those two things don't go together.
That's where I come in.
What do you mean that's where you come in?
I stay at her house while she goes out and drinks. I know, it's not a smart thing, but...
In what jurisdiction do you live?
In Worcester County.
Which is where?
Massachusetts.
How many children do you have, Mr. Allen?
I have 2 myself.
There was a certain hesitation in that, Mr. Allen.
It's 2.
2 is an answer. How old are they?
One's 16, one's 6.
And where does your 16-year-old live?
He lives with his mother.
And how many children did you give birth to, Miss Goodell?
The one.
This is what this case is about. Then maybe we'll revisit this issue. It is your claim that Miss Goodell, while out on a bender, drinking at a bar, brought home a male stranger to the house. That male, who she brought home to the house, damaged your motorcycle by knocking it over. We are going to assume, for the purposes of this case, that that did in fact happen, that your motorcycle was damaged as a result of this stranger that Miss Goodell brought home to the house. Your theory is that since Miss Goodell could not tell you the name of this person, that her conduct created a situation that enabled this to happen, and therefore she should pay for the motorcycle damage.
Correct.
So I'm going to find out the story, then maybe we'll go back and revisit this whole thing.
Okay.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Allen?
I work in an IT department at a business, Mass Mutual.
And how long have you worked for them?
About 6 months.
Prior to that, where were you working?
I was a subcontractor for a cable company.
And how long did you work for them?
A few years.
How many years?
2.
And where does Miss Goodell work?
She works at a dental office.
How many days a week?
3, sometimes 4.
Excuse me?
3, sometimes 4 days.
She worked part-time or full-time?
Full-time hours, but part-time days.
She paid in check or cash? Look at me.
Cash. I get paid in cash. Is that what you mean?
I didn't ask you about you.
Oh, sorry.
I asked about her. Where do you live?
Right now I'm staying with my parents.
How long have you been staying with your parents?
Since this incident,
And when was this incident?
October 14th.
And when did you go to court and agree that Miss Goodell had custody of your son?
I'd say 2008.
Does Miss Goodell receive any sort of supplementary assistance from the state for her support or the support of your child? Look at me.
You'd have to ask her. I believe so.
That's something you would know, Mr. Allen. So the answer is either yes or no.
Yes.
Do you pay support for your son?
I help her out.
That's not what I asked you. Do you pay support
Yes,
for your
I do.
son?
Yes.
Through the court?
No.
To the state?
Nope.
You think this was going to be easy, Mr. Allen?
No.
Not easy.
No.
Not easy.
All right.
Now, when you moved out of the house after this incident on October 14th, when the mother of your child, who was out on a drinking binge, and brought home a stranger to the house, according to you, with your son sleeping in the room right next to you,
Correct.
you thought it was a good idea to move out and leave him there with his mother?
No, I took him that night. I left with him.
Just a second. You left with him that night?
Yes.
How did he get back to his mother?
She picked him up the next day at my mother's.
And what did you do?
What was I supposed to do?
Go back to court and say she's unfit to take care of him. She brings home strangers who she doesn't know to your house while drunk in the middle of the night. That's what she says in her answer, right? That's what you said in your answer. I did read it right, didn't I?
Correct.
That's what I would do as a parent. I would go into court the next day and I would say, listen, this arrangement in 2008 is no good because my son is a child, he's at risk. You don't drink, do you, Mr. Allen?
Not very often, no.
Do you use drugs, Mr. Allen?
No.
Ever?
In the past,
How far in the past?
8 years.
Who else lives in your parents' house?
My
Don't look over there.
No,
And
I'm
you
sorry.
shouldn't have to think about it.
my brother lives there and my parents.
And do your parents work?
Yes, they do.
Both of them?
Yes.
How long had you been living in Miss Goodell's house?
6 months.
Prior to that, where did you live?
I lived with an ex-girlfriend in Connecticut.
Well, that was an off, because you've been on and off, according to you, with Miss Goodell for
Yeah.
14 years. So that wasn't very long.
No, we took like a 4-year break.
And are you telling me that for 4 years you lived with this ex-girlfriend? And if I were to call your mother now at work, she would tell me that you live home now for about 6 months, and before that you lived with your girlfriend in Connecticut for 4 years?
Yes, correct. I had my own apartment before that.
In Connecticut.
In Massachusetts.
Is that where you lived with the girlfriend?
The ex-girlfriend was in Connecticut. It's just over the line in Massachusetts.
So she lived with you?
No, I lived with her. At her house.
I thought you said you had your own apartment.
Before her, I did.
Well, that was, now we're talking 5 years ago.
Yeah. I didn't know how far you want to go back.
You said you took a 4, you see, Mr.
Yeah.
Allen, you said you took a 4-year break from Miss Goodell. That was at the time when you were living with the girlfriend in Connecticut, right across the border. Before that, you said you had your own apartment. Well, you can't have it both. Either you had your own apartment or you were living with Miss Goodell. Which was it?
When I broke up with the girlfriend, I moved in with Miss Goodell.
Well, that was afterwards, sir. We're talking about before. You said before that I had my own apartment.
Correct.
That was 5 years ago.
About that.
Well, if 5 years ago you had your own apartment, then you weren't living with Miss Goodell.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't living with Miss Goodell 5 years ago.
When did you live with Miss Goodell?
Up to about 6 months ago.
You said you were on and off for 14 years. You have a 6-year-old child, Mr.
Yes.
Allen.
Correct. Been
I
on-
think the state ought to think about coming in and taking your son.
Yeah, well, that's your opinion.
Yeah, that's my opinion. If the answers that I get from her are anything similar to what I'm getting from you, I would take a long, hard look at whether this is an appropriate household to raise children in. You babysit for your son while his mother goes out and gets drunk, and then you go home to stay with your mother and father, and I would take a careful look at what's going on here. Now, you want to tell me what happened? What night did you go out and get loaded and bring home a stranger?
It was Wednesday night, October 13th. I play on a shuffleboard league on Wednesday nights, and I was out with friends. Going back to being on and off for 14 years, one of the main issues that we have together is that Doug is known for stalking and harassing and annoying phone calls, rude text messages, things like that.
He says you're a drunk. He says you go out.
Of course he would say that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You people clearly have got the system down pat. You know what system you don't have down pat? Me.
Okay.
Me.
And later today,
How many trees did you cut down?
Well, I went straight across the fence. I'm not exactly sure.
Did you do that yourself, or did you have somebody else do it?
I did it.
I'd like to see what you did.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Douglas Allen claims the mother of his son, Lynn Goodell, owes for damages to his motorcycle caused by a man she brought home from a bar.
He says you go out and drink, and what he does is watch your son. And he's not worried about it because he lets you go out and drink, and he babysits for the child. That's what he says. I'm just telling you.
Right, I hear what he's saying.
That's what you say. So you went out to the Shuffleboard League on October 13th.
Correct.
And you were hanging out with some friends, and?
And I did have a few drinks that night, and I was playing, and I was conversing with an acquaintance of mine, and Doug started with his annoying, harassing phone calls and text messaging. The person became concerned for me and was asking me what the issue was and why I was becoming angry and annoyed, and I showed him some of the text messages that I received from Doug only on this one occasion, and he seemed slightly concerned for me and why I put up with it, and I explained, well, you know, Doug's kind of a hard person to get rid of. I've had restraining orders, I've had no abuse orders, I've had no contact orders, I've moved, I've changed my phone number, and this has been going on for a long time. Over the last year, yes, Doug...
Just stick with October 13th.
Okay. Well, this person became concerned for my well-being.
Remember, I read your answer, Ms.
Yes.
Goodell. Your answer doesn't talk about anybody being concerned for your well-being. Your answer talks about you being drunk and weren't able to drive home. Keep going.
I won't drive after I've had even 2 beers, so I let this person drive my car.
Person's name?
I only know his first name.
So you had somebody drive you home because you had been drinking?
Yes.
Let's cut to the chase.
Mm-hmm.
What happened when you got home?
It all happened very quickly. The man escorted me to the house. He asked if Doug was there. I said, obviously, he's here, yes. And he kind of helped himself into the home.
What do you mean he helped himself into the home? How do you help yourself into the home?
He just kind of walked in with me and made his way up to the bedroom. And
he made his way up to the bedroom?
He just, yes. I mean, obviously, Your Honor, he was drinking as well.
You knew where that was.
It's not that hard to find a room in a house.
Keep going.
So he went into the home, he went up to the stairs, and he went into the bedroom, and I was a few moments behind him. When I reached the top of the stairs, I realized that they were engaged in conversation. Doug looked at me, and I apologized, and the man said, "Why are you effing sorry?" and stormed past me, back down the stairs, out the door, and I went after him because I knew he had my keys, so I was like, what's going on? It all happened very quickly. I didn't know that this was going to happen. So when I went after him, I realized that the bike had been tipped over and he was getting into my car. I got into my car with him, and I said, what was that all about? And he just said, don't worry about it. I did it for you. And I was confused, so I had him drive back to his own vehicle. He got in his vehicle and he left. I sat in my car, absorbing the whole situation, and couldn't really come to an answer, so I sat there for several hours. Didn't want to go back home at that point, knowing that they would be...
Actually, did you see this man tip over your motorcycle?
I did not see him tip over the bike.
Who is this?
That's my witness. It's my friend Tim.
Witness to what?
He was there when she and her one-night stand came to the house drunk, so he witnessed everything I did.
If he were to testify, what would he testify to?
He'd testify to seeing them drunk And
Just a second, does he live with you?
he was sleeping over that night. He slept over in the basement.
What was he sleeping over for?
Because I told him I was going to be there with my son that night, and I bought my son a Nintendo Wii, and he comes over and we play games with the kid.
Uh-huh. And what time were you in bed?
I'd probably say 1 o'clock.
And who does this witness live with?
He lived with his girlfriend in Connecticut. He doesn't anymore.
When was the last time you worked full-time?
It's probably been about 3 or 4 years.
Do you get paid in check or cash?
By check. But it's only 10 hours a week right now.
I don't want to hear him.
Okay.
Don't you think that's a good idea?
You say so.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
You don't have any pictures of these trees before they were cut down?
No, ma'am. There was no need to take any pictures.
No. Just answer my question.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Douglas Allen claims the mother of his son, Lynn Goodell, owes for damages to his motorcycle caused by a man she brought home from a bar.
You have any other proof, Mr. Allen, that this gentleman that your girlfriend brought home knocked over your bike?
No.
No. And where was your bike parked?
Right at the end of the driveway, about 15 feet from the door.
Outside.
Correct.
When was the last time you watched your son while Miss Goodell went out drinking?
That would be this Tuesday.
This past Tuesday?
Correct.
And did you stay over at her house?
I did not, no.
So you must have gone home very early in the morning if she went out drinking. What time did she get home?
I do not know. I didn't stay there.
Well, who babysat for your son when you left?
I did. I took him to my mother's.
And she picked him up in the morning?
Correct.
And was that by prearrangement that she was going out?
Yes.
Who watches him at your mother's?
I do.
What about your mother?
She works. She was sleeping.
And what about you? When do you work?
I took a couple days off.
Goodbye, Mr. Allen. Listen, you people clearly have got the system down pat. You know what system you don't have down pat? Me.
Okay.
Me. She works. She gets paid in cash. Other than that, you get welfare for your child?
I do not.
You get any assistance for him?
I do.
What do you get for him?
Housing, food stamps.
Housing, food. That's assistance.
It is assistance, but it's
That's
not welfare.
What is it?
Welfare is cash from the state.
Who pays your rent?
I pay my rent. Well, the state pays half the rent.
Got it. Goodbye, Mr. Allen.
Enjoy your day.
Excuse you, may step out.
No, I don't think she meant to cause problems. She was drunk in a blackout.
I was not in a blackout that night.
She was drinking and she must have blacked out. She bring the guy home.
And I don't drink to black out.
When they left, he pushed her over on the way out.
He's angry because, well,
A bike, a motorcycle.
he's caused a lot of turmoil in my life.
Can I leave now?
And, you know, this was just karma.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Glover versus Brookins. Step forward.
Tanya Glover is suing her neighbor, Lasha Brookins, for cutting down 5 trees in her yard. Lasha claims the trees were attracting bees.
Miss Glover, the defendant is your neighbor who cut down trees that were on your property.
That's correct.
And you want her to either replace the trees that she cut down or build a privacy fence. And Ms. Brookings said that she cut down the trees because there were bees in the trees that were stinging her and making it unsafe for her to use her backyard. Okay. How long have you been neighbors, Ms. Brookings?
10 years or better, I do believe.
Could you keep your voice up?
10 years or better.
And how many trees did you cut down?
Well, I went straight across the fence. I'm not exactly sure, but I do have a picture of what I did.
It's 5 trees.
And did you cut them down at the bottom or did you cut them down from on your property?
From on my property.
So you stood on a ladder?
Yes.
Did you do that yourself or did you have somebody else do it?
I did it.
I'd like to see what you did.
I have pictures also, Your Honor.
I'd like to see pictures of what
it looks
cut
like
down.
from my side.
I'd actually like to see what she cut down. Are these shrubs or trees?
These are trees. Those are evergreens, Christmas trees.
You don't have any pictures of these trees before they were cut down?
No, ma'am. There was no need to take any pictures.
No. Just answer my question. Because these trees look as if they were covered with vines. There were vines in the trees.
In the trees, between.
I'm talking about vines in the trees. I see them here. kind of vines that kill trees. So what I want to know is, were these trees green or were they green and brown?
The trees were green.
Correct?
Not correct. They were green and brown.
Yeah, they look as if they were green and brown. Okay, very good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Have you been cheated? Go to judgejudy.com or call 1-888-800-JUDY.
How many of these trees were cut down?
5.
You can't cut down her trees. You can't, listen to me. I don't know how many times I have to say this. You cannot cut down her trees. You can cut down branches that are leaning over on your property, but you can't cut down her trees. And if you do, you have to replace them.
Okay, but I don't see why I have to replace them when they were over and they were housing bees.
No, just a minute. You're allowed to cut down branches that are hanging over onto your property, but you can't go on her property, even the air of her property, in order to get to trees that aren't infringing on your property. You can't do that.
Well, yeah.
You can't do that without an order. Anyway, you can't do it. Trees are $50 a piece. It costs you another $50 to put them in. That's $100 times 4 or 5.
I have an estimate.
I don't need your estimate.
A proposal from...
I don't need an estimate. Times 5. There were 5 trees.
Yes, ma'am. There's 9-foot
Most of them look as if they were dead anyway.
Yeah, well,
That's
no, they weren't, ma'am. They're 9-foot
Judgment
trees.
for the plaintiff. That's all. Thank you very much.
Parties 06 on the calendar in the matter of DeSalle versus Lampkins.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated.
Mr. Sell, you and the defendant signed a lease together on an apartment.
Yes.
She moved out.
Yes.
You want her to pay the remainder of her share of the rent for the remainder of the lease.
Yes.
The defendant says that you changed the locks on the apartment. She was thoroughly prepared to pay for the remainder of the lease, even though you two weren't getting along, and she decided to move out. However, she could not go back to the apartment even if she wanted to because you changed the locks. When did you sign the lease to the apartment?
On August 6, 2009.
And when did you move out, Miss Lampkins?
I left on...
He was locked out.
Shh. If you shout out one more time, you're gone.
Okay.
Got it?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Perfect.
Gotcha.
I left on April 7, 2010.
And when did you return to the apartment and find the locks changed?
Yeah, that was the same day, Wednesday, April 7, 2010. That is not true, Your Honor. She actually left on April 5th is when she told me she was moving out.
April 5th, she left?
Yes.
And she had paid April's rent?
Yes, she did.
And she didn't move all of her things out on April 5th, is that correct?
Correct.
She still had some...
Her bed left in the apartment and a desk.
TV. Shh. She still had things left in the apartment. On what date did she come back for the things? Was that on the 7th?
No, actually there was an issue on the 6th, and then the 7th she came to get the rest of her things.
There was what kind of issue on the 6th?
There was an altercation when I came home from school with her.
You came home from school? Mm-hmm. Was Miss Lampkins in the apartment?
Yes, she was.
And she was there with her mother?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
Well, when I ride home from school, I didn't know that they were home because the door was shut. I go in my room to grab everything or my cell phone.
2-bedroom apartment?
2-bedroom apartment, and it's separated with the living room in the middle. So I come out of my bedroom, go in my normal spot in the living room, and then that's when Taquana's mother, Irma, approached me about the situation that had happened the day before on the 5th about her moving out. And
I didn't say I was moving out on the 5th.
She said that Irma wanted to talk with me and my mother, and I addressed her and I told her that, you know, this issue is between me and Taquana, and that we're both adults and we both signed the lease, and it needs to be between me and Taquana. Things escalated from there.
What do you mean they escalated?
Taquana's mom started pretty much saying that she wanted to talk to my mother. She was getting in my face about how, you know, she wants the money back for April's rent and things like that. And then I ended up calling my mother, and then Taquana's mom got on the phone with her and was telling my mom things about how she wanted the money back.
Okay. Did you ultimately give her back her April's rent?
That's after I had to get a temporary restraining order on them.
Okay. So that was on April 6th, this conversation that you had with...
Part of the conversation, yes.
And then they left?
Yes.
Now, when they left, did Miss Lampkins leave any property at the apartment?
Yes, she still had her bed and things like that, but they left with threats.
They what?
Her mother was threatening that they would come back the next morning, and also they would come back on Friday and have parties in the apartment because pretty much everything everything in the apartment still belonged to me besides the things that was in her bedroom.
Just a second.
Okay.
So her mother was having conversations with you.
Yes.
And she was being, in your view, unpleasant.
Yes, I called the police.
And did the police arrive?
No. No, they didn't.
If you shout out again, I'm granting her application and throwing you out. Now do you get it?
I apologize, Your Honor.
Now do you get it?
Yes, I do. I apologize.
Good. Because you'll have a chance to tell me your version of the events, but you won't have an opportunity to tell me your version of the events if you open your mouth again when I'm not addressing you.
Okay.
Go.
Okay, so I did call the police, but after that...
Did you make a police report?
There were no police reports taken, but there was a transcript.
A transcript of your phone conversation?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to take a look at the transcript of the police report.
Okay.
That was on the 6th.
Yes, the top copy is actually the phone call that Taquana made, so the second copy on the bottom is the call that I made to the police.
Okay. You reported that your roommate's mother is verbal and refusing to leave the apartment.
Yes.
You don't say anything about her. And you were upset because the roommate hasn't been paying her share of the bills.
Yes.
Supposed to be moving out, but no eviction.
Correct.
That's what it is. So she wasn't doing anything to you?
No.
Okay, that's on the 6th.
Yes.
What was the next thing that happened?
I had to get a restraining order because also on comments that she made on Facebook talking about...
Just a second.
Oh, sorry.
On what date did you get a restraining order?
The 7th, that morning.
And on what did you base your application for a restraining order?
I had a printed copy of what she posted on Facebook about if I tried anything else.
I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Don't tell me. I can read it. Get the burner, and she gonna take it as a lesson learned. I don't understand what that means.
It's pretty much a gun.
Do you have any idea what this means?
Your Honor, a burner is a slang term, a street term for a gun.
And you are?
I'm Stephanie's father. It was the reason, hence the reason my wife and I went to her apartment. We were afraid for safety.
Yeah. Burner's a pistol.
Did you threaten to get a pistol? I'm not saying that you did it. Did you threaten? Well, I'm going to give this to you. Take a look at it and just make sure you read it carefully. I'm not asking you whether you meant it or not. I'm not asking you whether you have a gun or not. All I'm asking you is, did you write it?
Did I write that? Yes.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I wrote this sentence here.
Read what you wrote.
I put, LOL, girl, bring the burner tomorrow, but tonight I need a drink, so turn me up.
The one before that?
The one before that is my friend, Destiny.
Your friend said?
My friend said, if she pull anything else, I'm going to get the burner, and she going to take it.
Your friend said that?
Yeah, my friend said that.
Okay, so that wasn't you?
No.
And you responded what?
I said, LOL, girl, bring the burner tomorrow, but tonight I need a drink, so turn me up.
Okay.
Tomorrow would indicate April 7th, the day that her mom said that they would return.
Just a second. Listen to me.
Oh, sorry.
Do you know this person, Destiny?
I'm not aware of who she is, but when...
Who is that?
That's our friend. She came to the apartment.
Is that somebody you know?
No, I do remember someone coming to the apartment on April 5th when they moved out some of her things.
Now, why didn't you file for a protective order against her, the person who wrote that?
Because Destiny doesn't have, she's not on the lease. So the thing is, she's not able to get into the... She's not able to get into the apartment. They said bring the burner to the apartment. Taquana's on the lease, therefore she has a key.
No. Nobody said bring a burner to the apartment.
Well, that's where her things were.
But nobody said that here.
Okay.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
She could come into the apartment whenever she wants. That's one thing. But that didn't happen.
That's because I feared for my safety.
Well, the question is, was it a legitimate fear that you had for your safety?
And later today.
She said she took my money, but if I put her name on the police report, she was finna tell them that I was probably under the influence when I gave them my statement.
Well, those two statements don't jive together, Ms. Rousseau.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephanie DeSalle says ex-roommate Taquana Lampkins owes her for rent, cleaning fees, property damage, and the cost of new locks. Taquana says Stephanie locked her out, so she's not paying.
So you went and got a protective order, and changed the locks based on that protective order.
And also the altercations that her mother and I were having.
Her mother has nothing to do with you. Her mother, as you pointed out, is not a signatory to this lease.
Okay, correct.
So you had the locks changed so that she could not enter the apartment anymore.
Because I was scared. I feared for my life, Your Honor.
Just a second. Yeah, but there were several things you could have done. You could have moved.
Correct.
Right. But you changed the locks on the apartment so she could not get into the apartment. And that was...
No, that wasn't the situation, because actually I asked my leasing apartment complex if I could change the locks. They said I could, and then I left the key for them for Taquana to come pick up.
Listen to me. Listen to me very carefully.
Okay.
Don't tell me what the leasing office said.
Okay.
That's number one. Number two, there's only one reason to change the locks, and that's to keep your roommate out.
Okay.
Or other people, but mainly keep your roommate out. So there'd be no... Put your hand down. So there'd be no other reason to change the locks if you were going to give her a key to the new lock.
Well, the thing is that the key that we did have, her mother had an extra key, and I did not want her mother to continue to keep coming in.
Let me explain something to you. You don't look like a stupid girl. And I'm not saying there wasn't reason that the two of you shouldn't be roommates anymore. But if you're going to give her a key, all she does is take the key and go to a locksmith and make a second key. Then her mother has a key. So I don't believe that you gave somebody else the key to give to her.
Well, I did. I wrote a note to the leasing complex to let them know that I wanted a legitimate third party there because of the things of her mother keep getting in my face and things like that.
Just listen to me carefully now.
Okay.
If what you're suggesting to me is that you brought another key to the leasing office so that somebody else could go into the apartment to get the rest of her things out with her, that I believe.
Yes.
That I believe. You weren't giving her a key to the changed lock on the apartment so she could be there whenever she wanted to be.
No.
Of course not. So you changed the locks, which is pretty much what she says. You weren't getting along. For whatever reason you weren't getting along, I actually don't care why you weren't getting along before. So the question is she responsible for her part of the lease if she was locked out of the apartment?
Yes, because the key was returned to her. I wasn't, like I said, I was not trying to lock her out of the apartment because I gave the key to the leasing complex because her mother said she would be back the next day. But the thing is, like I said, they were doing things as far as leaving the front door open, leaving the refrigerator door open, leaving the heater on. So I couldn't have my property, my things at risk while she's in the apartment because I didn't trust it. I didn't want my things stolen.
You should have moved out.
And then I would have to be in debt.
You might. You're in debt now.
Okay, very true.
You're in debt now. But you changed the locks on her. Did somebody grant you a final protective order against her?
No, because I didn't reinforce it.
You didn't follow through with getting a protective order?
Because my dad had told me pretty much not to.
Listen to me. I don't care who told you not to.
Okay.
Whether he told you not to, whether you decided not to, you didn't follow through with the protective order. The temporary protective order served one purpose, and that was to make sure she was out of the apartment.
And she was.
And she was. Well, now she's out of the apartment, so now you drop the protective order, you've changed the locks, and now you want her to pay the rest of the lease. And what I'm telling you is, I am disinclined to do that. Now, if she could come into the apartment whenever she wants, that's one thing. That's one thing, but that didn't happen.
That's because I feared for my safety.
Well, the question is, was it a legitimate fear that you had for your safety? She didn't threaten you. A friend of hers actually did.
Okay, but she agreed to it. She said, bring it.
What she said to her was, I read it. What she said to her was, you want to bring it tomorrow, fine, but right now I need a drink, I need to calm down. And that can be taken lots of different ways, not all maniacal. Does she have a history of being arrested or convicted of assault?
None that I know of.
Does she have a history of gun possession?
None that I know of.
Okay. I gather that the last couple of months that you were together, you didn't quite get along.
It was fine up until April.
And she moved out when?
April 7th.
Just as what you're telling me now, it was 4 days and 4 days only that you had difficulty with her.
I mean, there were issues about her.
Of course. There were issues. I'm reading your complaint.
Okay.
So I know there were issues before.
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. And later today,
what do you know about the money?
I seen her go up to the front desk from the video camera, and she was asking to get into Carissa's room. She needed to get a medical paper.
real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Stephanie DeSalle says ex-roommate Taquana Lampkins owes her for rent, cleaning fees, property damage, and the cost of new locks. Taquana says Stephanie locked her out, so she's not paying.
Now, you had a 2-bedroom apartment. What efforts did you make to rent the second bedroom?
I actually went on roommates.com to look for someone.
Show me.
I was looking to get my bank statements because I actually did pay them, so I did do that. But within the short notice of getting this together, I didn't have that ready.
I can't help you.
Okay.
You locked her out. And what your father should have told you was, if you're frightened for your safety, we don't want you there. We're coming to get you.
And that's what he did. They came to be there to make sure that Taquana moved out the rest of her things so that way nothing else would happen. But ma'am, I was going to school. I couldn't afford to move out at that time. I was going to school.
Well, but you can't lock her out and then ask her to pay the rent because you're not getting along.
It wasn't that I locked her out because we weren't getting along. I locked her out because, or I didn't even lock her out. I just changed the locks and I gave her a key.
Case is dismissed.
Your Honor.
Your Honor, please, you're not even hearing the rest of my move-out
Listen to me
fees.
very carefully. I can't help you.
Okay.
Does it matter if she's only out for an hour or so?
I can't help her. You
Thank you.
had May, June, July, August, September, October,
So I was going to come
and
back every
November.
month?
I'm